I'm about to build this website in HTML and Tailwind CSS. If you haven't used Tailwind before, it's a game changer. I use it for all of my personal projects, and I'm actually building a business with it too. You have full control over the styling, and it's really, really fast to build. So this is what we're building right here. It's a data website. I have some JavaScript animation in here, sales section, who's using our platform, and this is a review section with some pretty sweet animations in there as well. Then a footer. So if you're ready to learn how to build this, HTML, Tailwind CSS, let's go. All right, let's go ahead and create our HTML file. So I'll type index.html, and we're gonna use our snippets here to create our boilerplate code. And we can actually go ahead and start this with live server. So you should see a blank page. We'll just give this a new title, data solutions, data save. So let's get Tailwind configured via the CDN. I'm gonna go ahead and just put an H1 in here. We'll say Tailwind, go ahead and save. This should be big because it's an H1. And we're gonna be using the Tailwind CDN. So we'll say script, we need to say source, and that source is going to be https://cdn.tailwindcss.com. Go ahead and save. Now we should see these Tailwind styles applied. Tailwind takes away a lot of these baseline styles that you would get with your header tags, with your unordered list, ordered list, and it really leaves all the styling up to you, so it's 100% customizable. So let's start with our nav bar here. So we can go ahead and delete this, and we'll give this, I want to say, class, we'll say BG black. We can give it a black background, and I want everything in here, the text, I want it to be white. So the first thing we're gonna do is create our nav bar, and we're also gonna have a mobile nav bar. So I'm gonna put all of this inside a div, and then we'll do desktop nav, and then just below here we'll have the mobile nav, just keep it nice and neat. And inside here we'll have a div with an H1. This will be DT solutions, just like that. I'm also gonna be using Font Awesome, so I'm gonna go ahead and paste in my link here. We'll just put it right here below the script tag. You just go to fontawesome.com to get that out. Let's see, fontawesome.com. There you go. You can click around here. We can just use this one here. It's free, and you can use whatever icons we want. So we're gonna be using the Font Awesome icons, and they're really easy to use. I'll just use it in here. Say I class, and we're gonna be using FA database, and we can just say FA solid. Then I'm gonna give it a color. I'll say text, and put it in these custom little brackets here. We can make it this nice kind of blue color. Next, we want to do our links here. So we're going to have some links up here. We'll go below this H1. We'll do a div, and then unordered list, then a list item. We'll have products. We'll do enterprise, and let's say pricing. Now we should be able to see these up here. There we go. Close this down a little bit. Now for this unordered list here, we actually want this to be hidden on smaller devices, and Tailwind is a mobile first approach, so any styles we define in here will be considered to be on a mobile device. And then if we want these styles to be applied to larger devices, we can just say MD for medium, SM for small, LG for large. Anything above the medium breakpoint, we want it to display flex. So we're not quite at the medium breakpoint, it should be right here. There we go. So there's that breakpoint. I'll go and leave it here so we can see. Anything above medium, we want to say flex. Now let's give some space in between these list items. I'm going to say space X 16. I'm going to lighten the color a bit. We'll see text gray 100. Let's make them a little bit smaller with text small, and then justify center. Just kind of throw them in the middle of that div. And then lastly, let's just throw a button up here that says dashboard. And for the class here, we actually want that to be hidden on smaller devices. Anything above medium breakpoint, we'll say block, justify, self, in, so it kind of sits at the end of the page. Let's give it a background of that same color. And again, anytime you use brackets and Tailwind, that means we're telling Tailwind to say, hey, this is a custom value. And I'll say text black, then text small, padding on the x-axis of 2, which is 8 pixels. Then we'll just say py of 1. And let's make this button rounded. All right, that looks pretty good. But let's go ahead and lay some things out, because right now it looks kind of funny. So let's go into this div right here. We'll say class. We're going to say grid, displayed grid, and then grid columns 3. We'll say items center. Ooh, actually, wrong one here. This one right here. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, we went height of 20 for this bar. There we go. Padding of 4. We're going to say border bottom. I'm going to give it 1 pixel, and we'll say border gray 800. Now, as far as the 800 goes, the smaller the number, it goes from like 100, 200, 300, 400, all the way up to 800. Smaller is lighter. The higher it is, the darker it is. So that looks pretty good. Let's give and there's our breakpoint. That's looking pretty good right there. We're going to put a little mobile hamburger menu. But let's go ahead and finish up how this looks on larger devices. So for this H1, I'm going to say class. I'm going to say font, bold, text, XL. And let's just do a little hover effect on these here. So we'll just kind of hold down the command button. We'll say class, And anything, we'll use the hover selector. We'll say cursor pointer, just like that. Now we have the little hover cursor pointer. All right. So next we want to do our mobile menu. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink this down so we're past the little breakpoint there. And we'll come just below this button here. We'll create a div. Should be able to use a shortcut. FA solid. Oh, they're nice. There it goes. And we want FA bars, I think. There we go. And let's say flex, justify, end. But anything above this medium breakpoint, we actually want it to be hidden, just like that. So now if we open this up, it should, if I move this, if we drop down, open up, it disappears. Looking pretty good so far. And let's just give an ID of hamburger. And this is how we're actually going to work our mobile menu. And let's go ahead and code that next. So we'll come down here all the way below here. So our mobile nav, we'll create a div and an a tag. We'll just do our products. We can just put a hashtag in there. We'll do enterprise and we'll do our pricing just like we had above. Then here, let's go ahead and say class, text, small, padding of 6. And then on hover, we'll say underline. Now let's lay this thing out how we want to look at it on a mobile device. So we're actually going to say hidden and flex, but we're going to toggle this hidden, and that's how we're going to work our mobile navigation, our dropdown. And we'll say flex column. And if we just take away that hidden for now, we'll come back and add that. We'll say border bottom 1 pixel. That way we can kind of see where it ends since it's a black screen. We'll say border gray 800, 700, 800. Let's see what it looks like. That looks good. Text center. There we go. We'll say BG black. So it stays black if we go over content. We'll say PX4, then PY of 2. And let's go ahead and hover and see. There we go. Looks pretty good. Maybe we can add another one down here, like a dashboard button, so we can get to our hypothetical dashboard. And we'll style this one just a little bit different. We'll say MY6, so it kind of stands out some. We'll say block width of 24. We'll make it like a button. M auto text center. We actually don't need that. So let's say text small. There we go. Let's give this a background of white. There we go. Then we'll just say text black. We want it rounded. We'll say PXC2. Let's see how that works. Okay, let's give it a little PY. So padding on the Y axis. We'll say hover. Anything on hover, we'll say BG gray. Let's do 300. We'll hover, okay. We'll transition. We can say duration. Let's see how that looks. There we go. Now we have a little duration. When you hover that, you know it's not instant. Kind of nice little effect there. And let's see. Ooh, nice. Looks pretty good. But we actually need a way to toggle this. So remember, we're going to go back and add this hidden class, right? Because we want it to be hidden. Then we're just going to toggle this whenever we click on our hamburger menu. So let's just give this here an ID mobile menu. So next, let's just go down here below the body and we'll just add just a little bit of JavaScript. We'll have a script tag here. We'll say const hamburger, and we need to grab this element, our hamburger element, this one right here. So we'll say document.get element by ID, and we just want to grab the hamburger. And let's do the same thing for the mobile menu. We'll just copy that down, and we're grabbing this one here. We can just say same thing. Next, we need to listen to a click, so we'll just say hamburger.add event listener. We're listening for the click. And if we hear this click, we're going to run this function. Run this arrow function. And this is where we're just going to toggle this hidden right there, right? So we'll say mobile menu dot class list dot toggle hidden, just like that. So now if we come over here, when we click this, nothing happens. Let's see what we're doing wrong here. Why isn't this working? Oh, weirdo. There we go. Let's try it again. Hey, there we go. Cool. And you know, hey, we can do like a little on this button. Let's find that button. Where's the button at? Here it is. We'll say on hover, let's say cursor pointer, so we know, hey, we can actually click this. Hey, it's not working. Is that not where it was? Oh, wrong one. Let's take that. Where's our, there it is. Okay. Sorry about that. There we go. Now when we hover this, you can see we get the little pointer. All right, yo, looking pretty good. Cool. So next we're going to do this hero, and I'll show you again what that looked like in case you forgot. So I had that cool little scrolling effect. I thought that was pretty awesome. And we're having this kind of like this, I don't know if you can barely see on the video, this kind of gray grid there, just a nice little effect that looks pretty clean. And we're doing this, however, with a little bit of JavaScript. So let's go ahead and do that next. Come back down here. And I like to make a little notes here just so I can keep track of everything. So I'm going to say nav bar. Let's close this down. Now I kind of know where everything is. And this is just going to be the hero. Keep things clean with the comments. So if you notice in here, we have this grid layout, right? Or this grid container, the little imagery. Then we have our main text in the center, but we have this blur behind it. So this black kind of blur, so it really makes like the text kind of pop. So we're going to do that first. So inside our hero, let's go back over here so we can actually see what we're doing. So inside the hero, we're going to create a div, and this is actually going to be empty, but we're just going to style it. So we'll say class. We want to position it absolute. And we can actually position things absolutely inside a, if the parent element is positioned relative. So we'll do that real quick so it kind of makes sense. We'll say relative. I'm going to say min height. We'll say 80 viewport height, flex, items, center, justify, center. I'm going to say inset 0. And then next, I'm just going to paste this in. I just did a little quick Google search to see how we can display this grid on there. So that looks pretty good. That's what we want right there. It looks pretty similar. You can see how we're doing here. So next, we're going to add this middle section with that black blur in the middle. Let's come back over here. So this is going to be the blur. We'll say anything above small with a max width of, we'll say 50%. So it doesn't take up the whole width of the screen. We'll say width full, height full. It's saying width 100%, height 100%. We want this to say BG black because it's sitting on top. Now we can give it a blur. I'm going to say 80 pixels and an opacity. We'll say 70. How's that look? All right, so you can see kind of a little darker right there, and that's exactly what you want. You can play around with the opacity with the blur pixels to kind of get it to your liking. Next, let's add the actual content in there. We'll go below this div here. We'll create another one. And this is where our scrolling container is going to be as well. So we'll create this div p tag. We'll say big data analytics. Then let's do an H1. Say launch in a weekend. And we'll give it an H2. Scale to millions. So let's go in here and we'll say max width of, we don't need brackets in here because we're just going to say 4XL. I want to say text center. There we go. I'm going to give it a Z index of 10 so it kind of sits on top of that blur. Cool. So next, it's going to give that big data that's colored there. So we'll say class, text, using a custom value. There we go. I want to say font bold. All right. And then for this one, we'll make it way bigger. Say text 6XL. We'll say font semi-bold. We'll give it some padding on the y-axis of 6. And for this one here, we'll say text 3XL, so it's big, but not quite as big. Padding on the bottom of 8, because we'll throw something, that little scroller beneath there, and we'll make it that same color. All right. Now let's do our buttons in between here. We'll say div button. We want to say get started, and we'll do the documentation. All right, and we'll say space X4, give it a little space in there. Space X4, yo, peep the shirt too. Space X shirt. Just got that this weekend. Good fit too. All right, so let's style our first button. We'll say class, we're gonna say BG. Keep doing that $. There we go. That blue, and if we hover, I'm gonna use this color here. So now we hover, kind of brightens up a bit, nice. And we'll do a little duration of 200 ease in text small. I want the text to be black, stands out a little bit. There we go, yeah, it was too subtle. PX4, PY2, and we'll say rounded. Let's see. And then for the documentation, we'll say BG gray 600. We'll do the PX4, PY2, and we'll say rounded. And we'll make that text small too, so the buttons match. All right, looking pretty good. Now, this is pretty clean. This little scroller here, we're going to use a little bit of JavaScript for that and some regular CSS. So let's go ahead and do that next. We'll come down here and we're going to go down a couple divs. And we'll just say this is our scrolling container to keep things nice. So we're going to put this in a div and we're going to have to add, so if you see this here, we see how it kind of like fades out. We're going to position those absolutely. So inside here, We'll create another div, and this is going to fade to the left, and this one will be fade to the right. And then actual content. And this will be, give it an ID of slider. And let's give this flex, and we'll say white space, no wrap. Now let's add our brands in here. As you can see, we have like Kickstarter payments. Kickstarter, I think I just copied a few of these. So we'll go in here, span, we'll say FA-brands, a little shortcut. For this brand, we'll say FA Kickstarter. We'll say text to XL and padding on the right of 1. So we have our little icon. Then inside here, we'll just say Kickstarter. Whoa. Let's move this outside of the icon. All right, there we go. That's better. Now let's give this here. We'll display block. Let's say inline. Inline block. Say PY2, padding on X4. Text small. We'll say flex and items center. Let's go ahead and save. That is looking good. Let's just copy this down 4 times, and then we'll change our brands. So we'll do GitHub, and this one will say FA GitHub. This one will say infrastructure. And we'll use Docker for that. And we'll use Kickstarter again. We'll say PayPal for this one. Now let's go and style this parent container here. Give this a class. Let's say max width of 400. Keep hitting that P there. 400 pixels. Anything above small, we'll say max width 600 pixels. So it's just a little bit bigger. Auto, text, gray, 600. Let's give a little padding on top of 12. Then we want to say flex, overflow X, hidden. And this is how we want to give it this little like blurred out on the edges. And we're going to make this like a continuous loop with a JavaScript. Say white space, no wrap. And then we want this to be relative because these blurs that we're about to add right here in these 2 divs, these are going to be absolute. If you hold down the Command or Alt button, I don't know if you're on Mac or PC, you can actually type in multiple lines at the same time like this. We're going to do that to make it a little easier, make it a little quicker. We'll say class. And here's where we're going to write just a little bit of plain CSS. So I'm going to create a class. I'll just say blur overlay. And again, this isn't Tailwind. This is just some CSS we're about to write. So let's just go up here and we'll create style here inside our head. While we're at it, let's go ahead and change this font. I will say apply this to all styles. We'll say font family. We'll say Montserrat. There we go. That looks a lot better there. Now let's do the blur overlay, right? So we're going to take this class. We're just going to define it up here just with regular CSS. And what we'll say here, position, absolute. I couldn't get this working how I wanted to and with Tailwind, so that's fine. We can just use both. It's not a big deal. Say top 0, bottom 0. We'll say width of 15%. Pointer events, we'll say none. We'll give it a Z index of 2. Now for our left class here, so we'll say blur overlay left. So we come down here, we'll say blur overlay, then left. Open this up. We'll say left 0. Then for our background, not the color, we're using a linear gradient to right. We can say RGBA. We'll say 0, 0, 0. Then we'll say 1. Then we'll do the same thing, RGBA. And we'll do pretty much the exact same thing. Oops, put the comma back in there, but this one's going to be 0. Next, let's just copy this down. Whoops. There we go. And this one's going to be right. And instead of this one to right, we'll just say to left. And we'll change that to right. And let me go ahead and check something. Yeah, we find this wrong. We need to drop these back a little bit. Couldn't see the blur. Ah, there we go. Now we save it. We can actually see the blur. You guys probably caught that one before me. All right. Next, let's come down here, and we're actually going to have to add a little bit of JavaScript here at the bottom. And if you're not comfortable writing JavaScript, that's fine. If you want to follow along, we can do that. Or if you just want to check out the GitHub, I'll post a link, and you can just copy it as well. All right, so we're going to add another event listener here. Say Document.add event listener. We'll say DOM content loaded. Arrow function. It's a const slider. Document.get element by ID. We're looking for the slider. And this is where we named it up here. Remember, guys, if we went up here to our slider, where is it? That right there. So that's how we're grabbing onto this HTML element. Just like we did with the hamburger and mobile menu. Come down here, we'll say const slider width equal to slider dot scroll width. Let's give a little space. So since this is going to be like an infinite loop, what we actually want to do, we'll say clone content for infinite loop. We'll say const clone slider dot clone node. We'll say true. We'll say slider dot parent element. Oh, we'll say append child clone. Okay, next we want to do a little bit of the, we'll say animation. We'll let the offset equal 0. Then we'll say const animate slider. We'll change the offset. Say 0.2. We'll say 0.2, keep it clean. We'll say if math.absolute offset is greater than or equal slider width. We'll just change the offset to 0. Then just below here, we'll give some space. Slider.style transform. We'll put our backticks. That way we can put a value in there. We'll say transform x. Open our curly brackets. Offset. And this is going to be pixels. Next, we'll say slider.next element sibling. Style.transform equal to. We'll open this up again. We'll just copy that down. Then we'll say request animation frame, animate slider. Then let's call this function. Let's give it a save. And it's not working. Oh, you know what? Translate. Oh, nice. Looking good. Smash the like button if you feel like this is looking pretty good, or if you're learning something about Tailwind, if you think it's cool. Let me know in the comments below. So that looks clean. And let's open this up here. Nice. Look at that. You can see I like how it's like just scrolling. Nice little blur on and off the page. Looking pretty good. All right. Next, let's do this here. And this is going to be responsive as well. Going to have four column strings down to 2. We'll be using grid for that. Let's do that right here. Find our hero. I like kind of making comments so it's just easy to navigate around. We'll say section 1. Create a div. So we're going to have 2 divs in here, one for the title on top, and then we're going to have the boxes below. So I have an H2 in here. We'll say built for the startup development team. We'll give it a P tag, scalable to enterprise business worldwide. All right, let's go in here. We'll give this a class. We'll say text center, py. Let's give it 20. There we go. Nice space. Inside here, we'll give this class. We'll say text 2XL. Then here, we'll say class. We'll say make this a little bit bigger. We'll say text 3XL, py of 3. And we'll say text gray. We'll say 400. Awesome. Then below that div, this is where all the boxes are going to be. All this Slack, PayPal, all this stuff here. The div we're in right now is the parent one. This is going to be the individual box. We'll say I dot. This is going to be FA brands, a little shortcut. And we want this to say this first one can be Slack. See what we're doing. There's a little icon down there. We'll put a P tag just after that. And we'll say Slack. There we go. Let's go ahead and style this box first. That way it's easier. We just copy them all down. So I'm going to give this class, we'll say flex, items, center, justify, center. We want to say space, x2, border, and let's give it a color. There we go. And I added just this 20 to give it a little, that's how we can give a little bit of opacity. So you can go up higher, it'll be a little bit darker, but we're going to keep it at 20. We'll say height, 80 pixels. Let's have a look. There you go. Looks pretty good. Now let's just copy this down because we have 8, right? So yeah, we have 2 columns of 4, and that's going to be responsive as well. So let's just copy this down. So was it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8? They're all just going to say Slack right now. We'll find the first one. So for this one, we'll change this to PayPal. PayPal. We use Algolia. It's kind of a cool thing for search. Algolia. I think that's how you spell it. Let's see. Nice. We'll do Dropbox. Change this one to Dropbox. We'll do Cloudflare. Cloudflare. I think we have Salesforce. Salesforce. Go. Then we'll do Waze. Don't know how that fits in there, but whatever. And we'll do Trello. Let's go ahead and save. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and kind of make this thing responsive so it looks good. We'll go up here. Where's the parent container? This one right here. We'll give this a class. We'll say max width 1300 pixels. And by the way, you can also do like max width small like you see before, medium, large, 2XL, 3XL. I think it tops out at 4XL. I'm not sure what the corresponding pixels are though. We'll say auto text gray 400, kind of darken it up a little bit, give it less contrast. Now here's where we want to display everything as grid. Now on smaller devices, on the smallest devices, I want to say grid columns 2, and then there we go. And then on a larger device, anything above medium, we'll say, put that together, grid columns 4, not 3. And then I just want to give it a little bit of padding. We'll say padding on the bottom of 20. We could say PX here. There we go. So let's open this up. So there we have it. Looks pretty good. And as you shrink down, it drops to 2. Stays there. All right. That's the end of that little section. Let's do this one next. It looks good. You guys throw this on like a portfolio. If you want to make a little like front end portfolio, if you're just getting started, I'll make a video about this, but really like, I think a lot of people think they have to know so much more than they actually do in reality to get a job. You don't have to like, we're going to do a div here. You don't have to know like all these data structures and algorithms just to get your foot in the door at tech. I mean, if you want to work for like Amazon or Google as a software engineer, then yeah, you probably need to know data structures and algorithms and you know, be familiar with servers, Node, Python, you know, there's a wide array of things you have to know. But if you're just trying to get that first job in tech as a web developer, like if you can do this stuff, you can get a job. You can get a job. And you don't have to like, don't think you have to like know how to do it all like in your brain without looking like a single thing up. Like that's not how anything works. So just a little confidence boost there for you guys. So inside here, we're gonna create another div. Then we'll have, why does it keep doing dialogue? Ooh, starting to lag a little bit. Div H2. All right. We'll say our engagement. Go down here so we can see. Let's give a little bit of padding. PD, say 24. And let's give this a class. We want to say text center, padding of 8. All right, here we go, text. Let's make this just a little bit bigger. Let's say text 3XL. All right. Then we'll say who's using our platform. And we'll give this p tag a class. We want to have like a little background on here on just the element itself. So I'll paste this in. And again, these last 2 characters, that's just the opacity. So you can see we have this little bar across, but we actually only want that to take up the width of the text, not like the full width of the screen. So we can say inline block. Let's say text 3XL. Let's see, padding of 2. We'll give it a little bit of margin. We'll say font semi-bold. Let's change the text to that blue too. So we can actually just use this. Open up our brackets, but we'll just take away the opacity. All right, so next let's do these actual like boxes here. And again, responsive. So we'll have one column, then basically grow up to 3. So let's come back here. We'll go below this div. That's going to be the parent div. And then we're going to have 3 divs with, we'll say 1M plus on this one. And we'll have another P tag in here. Well, I fill this in. Oh no, what happened? There we go. This is what we want. We'll say installs a month, but let's add an icon. We'll say class FA brands, and this is going to be FA NPM. See if that's showing on the screen. Yeah, you can see a little icon down there. Let's style this box. I'm going to say border. We'll give it that color. We'll change this opacity to 20. You can kind of see a little box down there. We'll give it a height of, let's say 175 pixels. Anything above medium, we'll change that height to 210 pixels. So it's just a little bit bigger. Say flex column, say items center, justify center. So they just sit right in the middle of the screen. Then for this P tag, we want this to be big. So let's give it a class. We'll say 6XL. There. Font semi-bold. Let's give it that color again. We don't need the opacity though. Nice. Now for this P tag, we'll say flex item center. So we'll just make sure it lines up like we want. Say padding on top 6 to give a little bit of space. And on this icon, it's kind of jammed up. So we'll say padding right of 2, which is just like 4 pixels. Cool. Now we can actually just copy this thing down. We have 8, right? Or no, how many we have? 3. So we have 3. So we'll copy this down 3 times. Well, 2 more times. Next one's 40K GitHub stars. So let's change this to 40K GitHub stars. Like that. And we'll use the GitHub icon. FA brands, GitHub, 40K GitHub stars. And then this one, using the Slack, so we'll say 11K. 11K, this is going to be team members. And this one is Slack. Nice. So we actually need to define how we're going to display this thing. So let's come up here to our parent div. This is where all those divs kind of live under. We'll say max width 1300 pixels. M auto. I'm going to change the text to, let's say 400. Now we want this to be grid columns 1. So 1 column, just as we see now. And then anything above the medium breakpoint, we'll say grid columns 3. Let's say P4 for some padding, then explicitly 20 on the bottom. So if we open this up, it should jump up to 3 columns, but it doesn't because we did something wrong. Grid columns 1. I think it just didn't define grid. There we go. Yo, looking pretty nice. Look what we have so far. This looks pretty good. Looking nice. So what are we doing next? Okay, so this is pretty sick here. Nice. We're going to do this like kind of masonry layout. We're going to use a little bit of just regular CSS for that. I love this. I think a little hover effect. I just like the masonry layout. I think it looks cool how it's like kind of dynamic to fit how much text you have in the box, right? So let's do that one next. We'll shrink that down. Come back over here. We'll shrink section 3 down and we'll do section 3. Oh, section 2 we shrunk down. We'll create a div. So first we'll do the reviews and like what are people saying, right? So we'll come back over here. Div with a H2. We'll say reviews. P tag. What are people saying? There we go. Let's go ahead and give this a style. We'll say text center. Padding bottom 8. We'll give this color, say text, FA. So it's kind of like a lighter white. And say text 3XL, so it's a little bit bigger. There we go. And for this here, say BG, we'll use that 40 opacity. Kind of same what we did for up above where it says who's using our platform. So we'll do the same with our text, but we'll just ditch the opacity. We'll say inline block. There we go. Text 3XL. P2, give it a little margin. We'll say font semi-bold. Let's see what that looks like. All right. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and give this, we'll say max width of 1300 pixels. And you could define that like max width up at the top. I just don't like doing that because like what if you want to have an element maybe say halfway down the screen, like a gray box or whatever, span the full width of the screen. So that's why I like to do kind of each element independently. But it's just build dependent, whatever your site, however you want it to look, that's your call. So next we'll do the masonry layout. So I'm going to say masonry, and that's actually a CSS class that we're going to apply. That's not Tailwind. And we'll do the same for this. Just it's a little bit easier and gets a little bit less messy. I'll have a span. It's going to be my tag there. We'll copy that down. Code commerce. Create a p tag. We'll say lorem. Let's see, 30. Let's see how much that is. I'm just going to shrink that down a bit. Then go up here. We'll say padding top 8. Say text gray 400. All right. Let's go to these spans. Say padding left of 1. Text gray 100. Let's change that to 300. I'll say text. I will say 15 pixels, so it's a little bit smaller. Nice. So let's go copy this down. Let's see how many we need here. So if we open this up, we're going to have 9 total. So this is the item. So it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And I'm just going to add, we're going to change the length of these so we can actually see that they display in that masonry grid. But before we go ahead and do that, let's go ahead up here and we'll define some more CSS. So I think we already said, let me make sure we said grid masonry. All right, so we'll come up here and we'll just say masonry. We'll say column count 3 and column gap of 20 pixels. And we already defined that item class, so we'll go ahead and do that one next. We'll say item, say width 100%, margin bottom 20 pixels, padding 20 pixels, display inline block, border, we'll say 2 pixels, solid, and let's use, what's that? Use that color there with the 20% opacity. Starting to look decent there. Say background color, OA, OF. We'll give it 60 on the opacity. Say border radius, 8 pixels. Nice, kind of rounded. Let's give it a box shadow. So we'll say 0, 4 pixels, 6 pixels. We'll do RGBA. Ooh, there we go. But we'll say 0.1. Nice. We'll say box sizing, border box, say color. We just define gray there. And we'll give this a transition. We'll say transform 0.3 seconds. Cool. So we still need to add a hover effect and a couple more things. That's looking good so far. Let's add some media queries, because we don't always want these to be 2 columns or 3 columns. That's looking pretty good so far. All right, we'll come down here just under item, say at media, max width of, we'll say 768 pixels. We'll have our masonry. And we just want to change this column count to 2. Then let's do the exact same thing, but we'll change this to 580 pixels. And we'll change the column count there to 1. So if we shrink this all the way down, 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns. And we want to add that little hover effect, right? So whenever we hover a card, just kind of gives it a little cool interactive style there. Come below this media query, we'll say item hover selector. And we want to transform. We'll say translate Y, just minus 10 pixels, just a little bit. See if that works. Ooh, clean. Look at that. Smash the like button, you guys, if you think that's clean. Let's see what else we had to do. Cool. Looks good. We'll add the little background over the gray there on the CC. And let's go ahead and we'll find the first one. Give it a class. The BG gray 300 rounded full. We'll say text black. We'll say P3. There we go. Now I'm just going to go ahead and copy, and then we'll just paste over all these other ones. Down just a couple more. And last couple ones. Cool. So, and we wanted this to be, it is a gray light. Whoops. Looks like I copied over all the wrong ones. What the hell? All right, let's go back. All right, there we go. Let's shrink this down some. So I'll mess this one up. There we go. There we go. Now we got the right ones. Cool. So that should be better there. Let's give it a save. All right. Looking good. All right. Now, this is a grid layout, but we want to have these kind of, they're going to take up different amount of room based on how much content is inside. So for example, this third one, if it didn't have very much text at all, we'll change that one. We'll change this one just so it's a little bit different. Let's come around and change some of these. And you can kind of just change them to your liking. Let's open this up and see how it's looking. Let's change a few more. Come up here to the top. Let's change this one. There's the one above it. There we go. Project's coming along nicely. We'll just shrink this back down. And let's go ahead and I'm just going to drop this down a little bit. And then we'll have section 4. We'll call it footer there. Cool. So for our footer, we'll create a div. Create another div with keep doing that damn dialogue. Create another div here with our H1. We'll have our icon here. We'll say class, FA solid, FA database. And this is just like our logo that we're using, right? And then whatever we call this thing, the DT solutions, we'll say DT solutions. Cool. So let's check this out back down here. There we go. Then under our H1, we'll say project by data solutions systems 2024, something like that. Let's go ahead and give this class. We'll say text gray 500, make it a little bit lighter. Let's drop that down a couple times. We'll just say deployed on Vercel, maintained by CodeCommerce. There we go. Let's go ahead and play with this H1 too. We'll say font bold, text XL. Where's our icon here? Oh, I didn't spell it right. There we go. There it is. Let's give it a color too. Say text. What was that color? I don't have it anymore. It's 3-8. There we go. There we go. Awesome. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and just kind of define this parent container here. Max width, we'll say 1300 pixels. Auto, we'll say PX4. PY, we'll say 16. We want the display grid, and we'll say grid columns 1. So we want one columns 1 column on mobile devices. Anything above small, we'll say grid columns 2. Let's give it a border top of 1 pixel. We'll make that border gray 800. Whoops. Let's scroll back up here. There we go. I think that's looking pretty decent. All right. Let's go in here to this div. Say class, say column span 1, and we'll say space y of 16. Might be a lot. Let's drop it down to 4. Do 6. Cool. Now let's just do these over here. We'll go below this div right here. Create another div. So this one we'll say column span 1, padding on top of 4. Well, only on mobile devices. Anything above small, we'll say padding top 0. Then inside here, we'll have another div, UL, and we'll have a list item. We'll have a few things in there. Then let's just copy this down a couple times. This first one, we'll say documentation, platform overview, say Y data solutions, DB cost and optimization. And we'll do one more. It says DS security. This one we'll do developers, solution center. We'll do open source, builder education, and one more. We'll do downloads. Then on here we'll do connect, engineering a blog, community. We'll do, copy that down. We'll do support, and we'll do events. All right, looking kind of messy. That's all right. We'll come here. We'll say class. We'll say grid. We'll say grid columns 3. There we go. Then I'm going to go ahead and hold down the command button so we can add styles in multiple lines here. We'll say class, column span 1, space Y of 4, which is just 1 rem. And we'll say text small. How's that looking compared? Pretty good. So we just need to make these gray. So let's come back over here, and I'm just going to highlight this, all these. We'll leave the first one of each little column as like kind of like a header, right? And over here we'll give class, we'll say, whoa, there we go, class, text, slate, we'll say 500. Let's give it a save. Very nice. Let's have a look. All right, let's open this thing up. Ooh, responsive, looking good. Let's go up to the top of this thing, you guys. I think that about wraps it up. Look at that. That's looking good. I think that's a pretty sick landing page. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let me know what you think of Tailwind, how easy it is to get started in just an HTML project, and how fast you can actually style this thing without an extra style sheet. The only downside I would say of Tailwind is it does get a little bit messy. I'll give you that. It does get a little messy with the class names. It's a little bit convoluted and harder to read. But once you get used to it, I really think you're going to love it. You saw how fast we could code things. It just makes it so easy to build and style front-end applications. So that's the project, you guys. Smash the like button. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.